Welcome to Quiet Fortune. In this noisy world, we don't chase wealth with noise. We build it in silence. One thought, one truth, one quiet step at a time. Here we don't promise fast success. We explore timeless wisdom about money power and the art of staying unseen. If you're ready to grow not for the world to see, but for yourself to feel, then you've already started. Let's begin. In a world obsessed with attention being invisible has become a superpower. We live in an age where people don't just live, they perform. Every meal must be posted, every trip must be shared, every purchase must be documented, every minor success must be exaggerated into a personal legend. This is the age of hypervisibility. But ironically, this is also the age where true power hides in silence. People often believe that flaunting success will attract respect, admiration, or even opportunity. But what it really attracts is envy, scrutiny, manipulation, and eventually loss. Flaunting is not about power, it's about insecurity seeking validation. And the moment your wealth becomes a spectacle, it also becomes a target. The truth is simple but hard to accept. Everything visible becomes vulnerable. This isn't just a metaphor. In both traditional Eastern philosophy and modern behavioral science, visibility creates risk. When you show your cards, you lose strategic advantage. When you expose your wealth, you invite predators. And when you announce your power, you signal your weakness because real power never announces itself. Let's examine this from a cultural lens. In many East Asian societies, especially in traditional Chinese thinking, the idea of Kang Feng Kong Feng hiding one's edge is not just strategy. It's survival. The sword that flashes is the first to draw attack. The edge you conceal is the one that lasts. Wealth is similar. In China, many wealthy families live in modest homes, wear plain clothing, and drive average cars. Why not? Because they can't afford better, but because they understand that once you show the world what you have, you owe the world an explanation for how you got it, and eventually how you're going to keep it. This cultural wisdom is often lost in Western contexts, where wealth is used as a signal of achievement. But even in the West, the most powerful individuals rarely flaunt. The wealthiest investors don't post screenshots of their portfolios. The smartest CEOs don't talk about their bonuses. And the most dangerous strategists move silently, never revealing their next step. The people who flaunt are often not the ones who have. They're the ones who need. They need attention, validation, and recognition. And in seeking those things, they unknowingly give up the very thing they're trying to protect: stability. When you flaunt, you also activate psychological triggers in others. You awaken envy in friends, suspicion in rivals, and greed in strangers. What follows is pressure, expectation, and judgment. You're no longer free, you're performing. And the cost of that performance is not just emotional, it's financial, social, and sometimes even legal. Visibility invites comparison. And comparison invites war. Even if you're not fighting anyone, someone is fighting you silently behind closed doors, fueled by the story you broadcasted. This doesn't mean you should live in fear. It means you should move with intelligence. Protect your wins. Disguise your moves. Celebrate in private. Let others wonder, not know. In fact, the most elegant way to live is to let your results speak so quietly that they don't even echo. They simply exist. Solid. Unquestionable, unspoken. When you don't flaunt, you preserve leverage. People underestimate you. They leave you alone. You get to observe without being observed. You get to choose your moment instead of reacting to theirs. And when you do strike, it's effective, quiet, and unstoppable. Flaunting is noise. Silence is strength. That's why in almost every ancient system of power, from Taoist teachings to Sun Tzu's Art of War, the idea of concealment is sacred. What is hidden is protected. What is protected endures. What endures rules. Let others play the game of visibility. You play the game of longevity. Because in the long game, it's not the loudest voice that wins. It's the one that's still standing when the noise is gone. Part 2, the ego tax. Flaunting is expensive. Not always in the monetary sense, but in energy, freedom, peace, and sometimes everything. There is a hidden cost that most people never factor in when they show off the ego tax. The ego loves applause. It craves affirmation. It whispers to you that success means being seen. But the more your success depends on being recognized, the more you are shackled to the performance of it. And performance is a burden. Consider this. A man buys an expensive car not because he needs it, but because he wants to be seen driving it. Every time he parks, he looks around to see if people are watching. He chooses roads where he can be noticed. He is not driving, he is acting. The car does not serve him, he serves the car. That's the ego tax. It turns freedom into a cage, abundance into pressure, and joy into anxiety. The fear of losing image becomes greater than the desire to grow. Decisions are no longer based on logic or opportunity, but on perception and narrative. When your identity is built on display, you become fragile. Every fluctuation in opinion, every change in status, every absence of attention feels like a threat. You live on edge, not from danger, but from exposure. In business, flaunting can be fatal. The moment you boast about your income, your clients, your methods, you become predictable. Competitors study you. Critics track you. Opportunists target you. The more data you give away, the more control you surrender. Even socially, flaunting is alienating. What you intend as inspiration often registers as intimidation. Your friends stop sharing freely. Your team starts hiding mistakes. People hesitate to give feedback because you've positioned yourself as untouchable. In trying to shine, you create distance. In trying to impress, you isolate yourself. There's also the paradox of relatability. The more you flaunt, the more out of reach you appear. And in today's world, people connect not with perfection, but with vulnerability and authenticity. The quiet achiever earns respect. The loud one earns skepticism. Now let's explore this through a cultural contrast. In traditional Chinese philosophy, the concept of gongcheng shentui gongcheng shentui, withdraw after success, is a recurring theme. The wise never linger in the spotlight. The higher you rise, the more danger surrounds you. So instead of basking in glory, the powerful retreat, observe, and evolve. It's not fear, it's foresight. Compare that to the modern obsession with building a personal brand. While visibility can have tactical benefits, when it turns into self-worship, it becomes a liability. You are no longer building something, you are becoming the product. And products must always be polished, repackaged, and sold. You stop growing as a person and start performing as a brand. There's a quiet power in detachment. You do the work, you achieve the result, and you let it sit. No need to broadcast. No need to convert everything into content. Some wins are meant to be private. Some wealth is more valuable when no one knows you have it. Even in relationships, this applies. When people know too much about your happiness, your lifestyle, your plans, they begin to interfere consciously or not. They offer advice you didn't ask for. They feel entitled to opinions. And slowly your life becomes a collective negotiation. Silence protects intimacy. Privacy sustains peace. And discretion preserves power. Here's a simple test. If something great happens to you and your first thought is, I need to post this, then you've already lost a part of it. Because now the moment is not about you, it's about how others will react to you. In ancient wisdom, especially in Confucian and Taoist traditions, self-mastery is measured not by expression but by restraint. You are not what you show, you are what you can hold back. Real confidence is invisible. It doesn't shout, it doesn't signal, it doesn't require validation. It simply exists, steady, silent, and strong. The ego tax is real, and most people pay it for years without realizing. So the question isn't whether you should be visible. The question is, are you building power or just performing it? Let your achievements be quiet. Let your wealth be functional, not theatrical. Let your life be yours, not a stage. Because the less you flaunt, the more you preserve. And the more you preserve, the longer you stay free. Part 3. The target you paint. To flaunt is to volunteer yourself as a target. Most people don't realize this, but every time you show off, you are giving away a tactical position. You are saying to the world, this is what I have, this is where I stand, this is what you can aim at. In the ancient world, warriors wore plain armor. Generals concealed their rank. The most powerful kings walked among their soldiers without insignia. Why? Because visibility invites danger. If everyone can see you, anyone can hit you. Today, the same rules apply, just in different arenas. If you boast about how much money you make, someone will wonder how to take it. If you constantly post about where you live, someone may watch long enough to exploit it. If you exaggerate your success, eventually someone will fact check your life, not because they hate you, but because your performance asks to be challenged. And what happens when your reality doesn't match the image collapse? Even if you have nothing to hide, flaunting gives others permission to judge. The moment you put yourself in the spotlight, you are no longer operating on your own terms. You are now playing on a field where others get to define the rules, the metrics, and the expectations. This is the beginning of loss, slow, invisible, and corrosive. Loss of control, loss of peace, loss of options. Because power thrives in ambiguity. Once you become clear, you become predictable. And the predictable are always manipulated first. Let's talk about competition. In business, flaunting your number strategies or growth gives your rivals a free roadmap. They don't have to guess what's working, you just told them. In personal finance, revealing your assets invites false friends, financial predators, and sometimes legal complications. In social dynamics, bragging creates a hierarchy you now have to defend. The moment you present yourself as above, you must constantly prove it. Because now others are watching, comparing, and waiting not always out of malice, but out of curiosity. And curiosity, when fed too often, becomes scrutiny. There's also the issue of energy leaks. When you flaunt, you're spending energy to maintain an image. You're curating, editing, optimizing not for yourself, but for external validation. And every minute you spend crafting perception is a minute lost from actual progress. This is why so many people look successful but feel empty. They've outsourced their identity to the crowd. They're working for applause, not for growth. And applause, as addictive as it feels, doesn't pay the price of true fulfillment. You must ask yourself, do I want to be seen, or do I want to be sovereign? Because the two don't often coexist. Visibility can be intoxicating, but it rarely pairs well with independence. The more eyes on you, the more you owe them something, an explanation, an update, a show. And the more you owe, the less free you are. In Chinese strategic thinking, there's a proverb, Shu de Jiao Feng. The tall tree catches the wind. The bigger your presence, the more forces try to shake you. That's why the wise grow deep roots before reaching high. That's why they move underground before stepping forward. There is no shame in hiding strength. In fact, that's the art of sustainable power. Because power that is always seen will eventually be challenged. But power that is quietly built, protected from envy, noise, and drama, tends to last. Consider Warren Buffett. Despite being one of the richest men in the world, he still lives in the same modest house he bought decades ago. He wears the same clothes. He doesn't flaunt, not because he can't, but because he understands the value of being underestimated. To flaunt is to declare, look at me. To stay quiet is to whisper, you have no idea what I'm capable of. One invites praise and attack. The other invites peace and control. So the next time you feel the urge to share, to show off, to prove something, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing to inspire or to impress? Am I seeking connection or validation? If the answer reveals ego, choose silence. Not because you're afraid, but because you are strong enough not to need applause. Power that isn't flaunted is the hardest to defeat, because no one sees it coming. Part 4, the quiet path to true influence. True influence doesn't come from being seen, it comes from being remembered. And paradoxically, the people we remember the most are often the ones who spoke the least, moved the most quietly, and revealed the least about their inner world. In every era, there are loud players and quiet architects. The loud players rise fast, draw attention, win quick favor, and burn out. The quiet architects shape the environment slowly. They master the long game. They are rarely talked about in public, but they are the ones who shape what others talk about. You have to choose which one you want to be. When you flaunt, you build image. When you refrain, you build essence. Image is fragile. It depends on audience optics and performance. Essence is unshakable. It lives in your values, your skills, your adaptability. It does not need defense because it cannot be attacked. You can lose followers but not substance. You can be criticized but not displaced. This is why the greatest influence is built in silence. Let's consider the example of old Chinese families who've preserved wealth and reputation for generations. You won't find them on social media. You won't see their names in headlines. But their influence runs deep. They control land industries, policy networks. They have what the flashy never attain: legacy. Legacy is never loud. It is built day by day, brick by brick, in silence. In Confucian philosophy, the superior man Junzi doesn't chase fame but cultivates character. He is not measured by how many see him, but by how deeply he stands when no one is watching. In this philosophy, the path to dignity is paved with restraint. And real influence, flows from dignity. Think of the people who shaped you most: a quiet mentor, a disciplined parent, a humble leader. Chances are they didn't flaunt, they modeled, they didn't lecture, they lived. Their power wasn't volume, it was alignment. Flaunting disrupts that alignment. When you show too much, you shift the focus away from the substance to the symbol. You become more about the external appearance than the internal truth. You may gain popularity, but you lose gravity. You become visible, but forgettable. The irony of real wealth is that it prefers to be invisible, not hidden out of shame, but protected out of wisdom. That's the difference. To flaunt is to prove. To preserve is to protect. And what's worth protecting? Freedom, peace, privacy, legacy. Flaunting threatens all of them. There's also a psychological dimension to restraint. The more you keep to yourself, the more others project onto you. This is not manipulation, it's minimalism. You leave space for curiosity, you invite imagination, and in that space, power expands. This is why the great spiritual traditions always emphasize silence. In Taoism, those who know do not speak, those who speak do not know. In Zen, the silence between words holds more truth than the words themselves. And in business, the silent partner often holds the most equity. In negotiations, the one who talks least wins the most. In strategy, the unseen player lasts longest. All of it flows from the same truth: power is quiet. Real influence whispers. If you want to play the short game, flaunt. If you want to play the long game, protect. When you resist the urge to show off, you build invisible strength. You stay grounded. You move when others are sleeping. You win before others know the game began. You become someone who can't be shaken, not because you're hidden, but because you are rooted. Let the world chase attention. You chase alignment. Let others burn energy performing. You build a system. Let the loud gather fans. You gather leverage. And when the noise fades, you'll still be standing quietly, patiently, freely. Because you understood one timeless rule: the more you flaunt, the more you lose.